Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, where this morning we're going to be starting a brand new series here on the channel. While the series is brand new, it's actually a continuation of an older series that we've done here on the channel. If you're familiar with What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange, this is the sequel to that series, Boruto the Sorcerer's Son. What If Boruto Was a Sorcerer, Season 1, Part 1. As always, if you're new to the channel, or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. With this series being a continuation of What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange, we continue to delve into the world of Naruto as well as the mystic side of the Marvel Universe. Yes, there are many more powerful enemies, dangerous cosmic foes that lie far beyond their world and dimension. This is the story of the son of one of the most powerful sorcerers to ever exist, in his own journey into the realm of the mystic arts. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The Hidden Leaf Village. Once a proud and mighty nation of shinobi, reduced to nothing but burning cinder and crumbling ash. In the midst of the chaos and destruction, the dark clouds that loomed overhead, two shinobi stand across from one another on the destroyed face of the seventh Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki. I didn't think you'd go this far, Kawaki. I've only done what I've had to do, Boruto. If you would have just died back then, if you would have made things easier, we wouldn't have been pushed to this point. I can't say you're wrong there. But unfortunately, you and I will just have to agree to disagree. I can agree with that. But you should know, Boruto, one way or another, shinobi, sorcerers, magic, whatever you want to call it, all of it comes to an end. Boruto reached into his shuriken pouch, pulling out an old headband and wrapping it around his forehead as black markings began to protrude onto his right arm and over his eye. That may very well be, Kawaki, but I am still a shinobi. As the two would begin their clash, our story begins to fade to a time far off in the past itself. A time when things were different, before the chaos and calamity that befell upon this world. There was an enjoyed time of peace. It was just a mere 3.5 years ago. Our story begins nowhere else but in the Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto, the current 7th Hokage, looking out of the mirrored Hokage office from his window view upon the entire village that he watched over. It had only been about 7 or 8 years since he had taken over the position of Hokage, and when he gave up the position of Sorcerer Supreme. That position was now held by his close friend, Sasuke Uchiha, who traveled about various dimensions, searching through the remains of Kaguya's ruins. It was just then that the door would open as Sakura Haruno would walk in, giving over a report on some new mystical findings that she had found. Sakura, who had once been the student of Agatha Hue, formerly known as Agatha Harkness, searched and combed through the books that remained of her old master. Agatha didn't bring much with her when she came to this world, but what was left behind, Sakura combed over time and time again. She also went on excavations whenever possible. Exploring more of their own world, they came to learn that there were many things that they themselves didn't even realize. There was much more to the world's history than they realized. Sasuke hinted towards this, especially after the events of dealing with Toneri Otsutsuki on the moon. It left them to wonder how much of the world did they truly know and understand. The White Zetsu army, the tale of Kaguya, Toneri, all of these other beings, the Ten Tails, the Ghetto statue. There was so much about their world that even they themselves didn't entirely know, and there was so much just waiting to be explored. "Thank you, Sakura," Naruto would say. "So, how's things been with you and Lee?" "They're going quite well, actually. Me and Lee get to attend the academy together a lot, and the children are showing great improvements in their taijutsu and their genjutsu. That's good to hear. Time again, we seem to forget that there's more to fundamentals of being a shinobi instead of just how big of ninjutsu that you can cast. That is the truth. Genjutsu has definitely been a lacking priority among the various generations. Although there are a few exceptions to the rule, I don't want that to become the standard. I believe that all facets of shinobi life should be taught to the fullest extent. I believe that's why Tenten has so much fun with the Kenjutsu classes as well, trying to make the students more well-rounded in that regard. It's a good thing to hear. Have you heard any news from Sasuke?" "No, not anything recently. Not since his last discovery through one of Kaguya's ruins, but that was over 5 months ago. Since then, he's been continuing in his travels, but he should be home soon. After all, that's when the kids come back." "I see. Do you think it was a good idea sending them away for so long?" "It's not like we can't reach them," Naruto would say. "And besides, this was a part of their heritage. They were going to have to learn how to master it at some point. Our children aren't like most others. They don't just carry the blood of shinobi, but they carry the blood of sorcerers within them. All 3 of them, actually. And I can't wait to see what's become of them, especially Boruto." "Yes, Lee has been developing well into his own mystic arts lately. He's definitely inherited his father's skill of taijutsu, and then there's Sarada. She definitely has the split personalities of both her father and her mother. Perfectly balanced, all within one child." In the meantime, our story changes to a new location, a place known as Karma-Taj, home of the sorcerers. It was here where beings such as the Ancient One, Wong, Doctor Strange, and even Naruto for a short period of time all trained and mastered their abilities. It was around 3 years ago when Boruto, Sarada, and Lee were all respectively around 9 to 10 years old. They were sent to Karma-Taj for 3 years of training and instruction. Of course, their parents would visit them from time to time, but they stayed at the monastery, where they honed and mastered the mystic arts. First, there was Boruto, the eldest son of both Naruto and Haku. During his 3 years, he mastered the basics of the mystic arts for his instruction. This is what all 3 children would be working on. First, the ability to create mystical constructs, and the usage of the spell known as the images and the illusions of Icon. To give a brief explanation, the images and illusions of Icon can be correlated to what the Shadow Clone and the Clone Jutsu are. Shadow clones are tangible clones that you can touch and interact with, while regular clone jutsu are merely just illusions that can't interact with anything and can't even cast their own shadow because they're just illusions. This is the magical version of that technique. The images of Icon are physical clones. The illusions of Icon are, well, regular illusion clones that can't be interacted with. On top of that, each student would take 2 mystic arts to learn and to master. For Boruto, he chose the winds of Watum and the ice tendrils of Ikolath, paying tribute to both his father and mother, as his father was a skilled wind user in wind chakra, and he gained ice release from his mother. In terms of ninjutsu, he also practiced that on his spare time as well. Among many of his techniques, he was most proficient in using the ice-style partial frost. The best way to describe this technique is, imagine Iceman from the X-Men comics, and how Iceman is able to turn his entire body into that of ice. Well, using ice release, Boruto is able to achieve a similar feat. However, unlike his mother, Haku, who can perform a full ice transformation similar to Iceman, Boruto can only do it partially. Basically, just his hands, his fists, and his feet and his legs. He can partially transform them into ice, making them harder, denser, and overall just increasing his strength and speed and things of that nature. Then there's ice-style frost shuriken, where Boruto using ice release is able to make things like shuriken and kunai out of ice. And while these weapons are made out of ice, they are practically as strong as steel or as any other kunai or weapon that he uses, so they're just as deadly. And just like in the original timeline, Boruto would still learn the lightning-style thunderclap arrow, and he would also have the wind-style air bullet. Next, there would be Sorcerer Uchiha, the eldest child and daughter to both Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga, who now went by Hinata Uchiha. Similar to Boruto, she would also learn 2 basic spells that she had to master, that being the use of mystical constructs using her mystic energy, as well as using the images/illusions of Icon. For her 2 signature spells, she would learn the Flames of Faltane, as well as using the Shield of Seraphim. Now, this is similar to the mystical construct shields that you see Doctor Strange use in the MCU. However, instead of making them by hand, Sarada can just summon the shields of various size at any place of her choosing. As far as her jutsu goes, as stated by Kishimoto when asked the question, what would happen if a Hyuga and Uchiha had a child, Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, has explained that the child would have 1 Sharingan and 1 Byakugan. So, Sarada's right eye is her Sharingan eye, to which she has 1 Tomo at the moment, and her left eye is her Byakugan eye, which she has for 1 Byakugan. On top of that, she also has learned the 32 Palm Strike Jutsu, inherited of the Hyuga clan, as well as using lightning-style Lightning Ball Jutsu and using the Shuriken Jutsu as well. Her chakra natures is also Fire Style and Wind Style and Lightning Style. Then finally, there would be Metal Lee Haruno, the son of both Sakura Lee Haruno and Rock Lee Haruno. When it came to his skills and abilities, just like with Boruto and with Sarada, he would learn to create mystic constructs and he would use the images and illusions of Icon. Also, one thing I would like to point out, as far as the color of their mystic energies and how it looks, Boruto's magic color is an orangey red type color, more so on the side of orange. Sarada's is a light/dark blue type of color, and for Lee, he has a crimson light color himself. The two magical techniques that he would specialize with would be first the Crimson Bands of Sidorak and a new technique that he would create all of his own, known as Chaos Mind or Inner Li. If you'll recall, in the earlier parts of Naruto, Sakura had this running gag or trope called Inner Sakura, which was basically that inner personality, how she really felt versus how her outward self would normally be. Well, because Sakura continued learning in the ways of the mystic arts and with chaos magic, her inner Sakura actually became a living embodiment of herself. The best way I can describe it is, imagine how Dark Shadow is to Tokoyami in My Hero Academia, and essentially that's how inner Sakura and inner Li act for the both of them. With Sakura being able to use inner Sakura, if someone tries to use genjutsu or tries to use any form of telepathy or enter into her mind, then they have to deal with inner Sakura. And a similar process applies to Metal Li. He's not the most skilled at using magic in an outward way, but he instead uses it to increase his overall strength and skill, not just physically, but mentally. So let's say as far as genjutsu is concerned, this is how powerful Metal Li is. His genjutsu resistance is a very, very high. That means unless you're coming at him with, say, some hacks, Sharingan genjutsu, I'm talking Tsukuyomi or Koto Amatsu Kami, you have to hit him with that level of genjutsu or something the mystical equivalent or greater. Otherwise, it's not going to have any effect at all. And with him having Inner Li, it kind of works similar to how a perfect Jinchuriki would be, because he's essentially created his own split personality, so that even if you did try to put him under a genjutsu, the inner personality will wake him back up. Now, this is a double-edged sword, because for someone like Metal Li, who is usually calm and humble, his Inner Li is the exact opposite of him. Inner Li is a bragging douche, and I'm trying to say that in the politest way possible. But basically, if Metal Li is a kind, soft-spoken, well-behaved child, if Inner Li comes to the forefront, he becomes something different. He becomes the embodiment of chaos. But this does lead to one special feat, though. Whenever Inner Li takes over, he likes to dish out his own form of taijutsu, which he calls Chaotic Fist. That's when he coats his hands in chaos magic aura, whatever you want to call it, and his fist, his punches, everything become a lot more stronger, but a lot more chaotic. His movements become hard and almost impossible to anticipate because he just moves and fights in such an unorthodox manner. So, if you have the Drunken Fist or the Anxiety Fist, this is what I would call the Chaotic Fist. As far as his jutsu is concerned, since he mostly sticks to the mystic side, learning from his mother, when it comes to his father, that's where he gets a lot of the taijutsu, such as learning the 8 inner gates and being able to open up the first 3, that being the gate of opening, the gate of rest, and the gate of life, and by opening up the first gate, he's able to perform the front lotus. He's basically a mystical version crossover between a sorcerer and someone who specializes in martial arts. So I'd say the best comparison for his character, think of someone like the Iron Fist with a sprinkle of Scarlet Witch to give you a good idea of what he's capable of. As far as the 3 children went, they were far different from any other of the students at the Ninja Academy, especially due to their heritage and what they inherited from their parents. Because of that, when they were around 9 or 10 years old, just 3 years before the official graduation period, the 3 would be given the Genin graduation test earlier. As far as Naruto and the others could tell, them passing was more of a foregone conclusion than anything else, and spending the next 3 years in the Ninja Academy would only stagnate their growth. As far as their ninja heritage went, they had that pretty much down packed. It was the mystic side that Naruto was taking an interest in. As such, the three would be sent to Karmatage, where they would train in the mystic arts for the next 3 years, honing and mastering their skills before they would officially take the rank of Genin. Boruto lied awake in his room, he and Lee both being roommates. Tomorrow, they were going to be returning back home. It had been 3 long years, 3 years of grueling, of training, and more or less just stewing. Of course, learning to use the mystic arts for Boruto, it seemed pretty easy enough, no different than using chakra. In fact, it became so easy it was almost second nature, which meant Boruto had the unfortunate habits of always trying to take shortcuts. Of course, there was also his roommate Lee, who, for the most part, was a stoic, almost akin to being like that of a monk. The guy never wanted to do anything, and it wasn't like that was necessarily bad, but whenever Boruto wanted to try to go off and have some fun, or potentially get into trouble, Lee was more or less not keen on getting involved. Although unfortunately, he'd find himself being dragged into the same capers as long as Boruto. But now they were going to become Genin. But what exactly did that mean for them? Sure, they had the skills and the abilities, but what exactly were they supposed to do with it? That was also one of the more misconstrued things when it came to magic. It almost made you question, why the hell did you even want to learn it in the first place? Of course, Boruto didn't have anything better to do, and it was either do this or spend another 3 years in the academy, and outside of hanging out with Shikadai and Inojin, he really didn't care for anything else. He thought that this would be a challenge, and it was in certain spots, but eventually he got the hang of it pretty effectively. In the end, though, he just didn't have any motivation, any drive. It wasn't like there were other sorcerers in their world. They'd be the only ones outside of their parents and maybe a few select others. And then there were all the rules and regulations that went along with it too. Honestly, Boruto, if for any other reason, he left because, well, he didn't really feel like he had a place at home. He remembered when his father became Hokage. His mom was already working in the Konoha hospital, so normally it was just dad being at home most of the time with the kids, but soon he became pretty busy as well, and if they weren't being babysat by Jiraiya or Uncle Zabuza, then more or less they were on their own. Of course, they didn't have any troubles or worries, but still, if Boruto could have wanted anything, he would have just wanted to be with his family a bit more. But knowing his father, he'd still be busy being Hokage, so there was no point in getting his hopes up. The next morning would arrive, and Boruto would meet up with both Metal Lee and Sarada at the rendezvous point, waiting for the spell circle to be opened for them to return home to. Sarada had a big bag full of souvenirs and other things from Karmatage that she wanted to show to her family. She was the one who seemed most proud of their entire visit, believing that this was going to take her one step closer to her ultimate dream of being Hokage. I can feel it now. I've definitely grown and improved. I know I'm going to be Hokage someday. Yeah, you'll be a shoo-in. It's not like there's anyone who's going to challenge you. What? Boruto, being Hokage is a sacred honor. It's not something that just can be taken lightly or anything like that. You have to really put in the work, the dedication, the heart, the yada. See, this is what you sound like yapping all the time about being Hokage. I mean, all you do is do paperwork behind the desk and look all important. It's not like you really do that much to begin with. Being Hokage is doing a lot more than just paperwork. You know that if you actually took a minute to look and have consideration. I mean, seriously, your father has to take care of the entire village. Don't you think that can be just a little bit draining? I don't doubt that, Boruto would say. I don't doubt the work that my father puts in. I see it firsthand. But still though, what's the point of being Hokage if you're never around for your family? If you're always busy doing everything else? I mean, this whole time that I've been here, he's never once shown up to see me off, to visit, to say hello. He just sends letters and gifts, and that's great and all, but damn, could I see my pops face to face once in a while? Sarada couldn't help but agree with the sentiment. She was in a similar boat also. Outside of her mother paying a visit along with her younger brother, her father had a tendency to be laxed. Even Uncle Itachi showed up more. For Lee, he didn't make too much of a big deal about anything, since both Sakura and Lee would come and visit him equally as much as they could. And for the most part, he seemed to be the most balanced out of everyone, or at the very least the most content with everything. From out of nowhere, a star-shaped portal would open in front of the children, and out would pop none other than Chavez. "Miss Chavez," Sarada would say with a smile. "Sup, kiddos? You guys ready to go home?" "So, you're the one picking us up?" Boruto would say. "Uh-huh. And to congratulate you all on your passing of your final test, we're all going out to eat. So, where do you want to go?" And when I say where, I don't just mean going to your good old Leaf Village. I can take you anywhere. That actually piqued Boruto's interest. America Chavez, a hero from another dimension, taken in by Dr. Strange and soon passed off to Naruto as a student, she had become an unofficial adoptive child to Naruto in a way, and as such, she was the one entrusted with picking up the children. Boruto had heard about other dimensions, but it was very rare that he got to go to one. But he knew one thing: there were places that had burgers. He wanted a nice big one. As for Sarada, she would have gone anywhere that gave different cuisine, and Lee was always down to try something new. As such, Chavez would open up a portal to the nearest burger joint, and they would all enjoy a nice, well-deserved meal, before eventually returning home. As Boruto would arrive to his house, he would be greeted by his mother and his younger sister Himawari. He hadn't seen them both in almost a year or so, and Haku would remark how he'd grown so much in just a short amount of time. As for Himawari, she was happy to see that her big brother was finally home and for good this time. They would celebrate as well, just a small little gathering together, as Boruto would be meeting in the Hokage's office the next day, as the new Ginning team was finally going to be put into form. The next day would arrive, as Boruto would make his way to the Hokage office, along with both Sarada and Metal Lee. As they all arrived, Naruto would be waiting to greet them, a smile on the face of the Hokage, as he walked over to his son and extended his hand for a handshake. Boruto would reciprocate, trying his best to act all cool and nonchalant, but Sarada could see the blush that was forming on his cheeks, and the form of a grin appearing at the edges of his mouth. "It's good to see you, Boruto. You've really grown up in just 3 years." "Yeah, it's good to see you too, Dad. Please, I know, Lord Seventh." Naruto simply grinned and ruffled his son's hair. "I'll let it slide this time. So, first, I want to say congratulations to all of you. You're now officially being promoted to the rank of Genin. Not only have you completed your ninja training, but you've met the requirements to show that you all have what it takes to be capable sorcerers in your own right. As such, I'm here to announce that properly, America Chavez here is going to be your official Jonin Sensei." "She's going to be our Jonin Sensei?" Boruto would say, a bit surprised. "Uh-huh. Looks like you're stuck with me, kiddos." The reason why I'm putting her in charge of you all is because of your special circumstances. And now that all that's out of the way, I can finally go into more detail about why your team was formed specifically. As you three know, you come from a distinct lineage, unlike any other in the ninja world. You're not just ordinary shinobi, you're sorcerers in training. Sarda, as you well know, your father is currently the Sorcerer Supreme of our world. There are many different worlds and realities with various sorcerers, Sorcerer Supremes, and those who take on that title. Now, it goes without saying, but I've wanted to try to keep the number of magic users in this world kept and contained to a small amount. As I was informed long ago, the more magic users that there are in the world, the more diluted the power becomes. And, for better or for worse, the more that we attract unwanted guests and unwanted trouble along the way. Unwanted trouble? Boruto would ask. Yes. I guess if there was the best way of describing it, you could say that magic is like honey, and honey has the unfortunate displeasure of attracting flies. Flies are very much unwarranted. Now, a little bit of honey might attract a fly or two. That's just to be expected. But the more honey you have, the more of it gathers and brings a lot of unwanted pesky insects. For example, Naruto would create a mystical hologram. This is what we called a mindless one. They're, for more or less, mindless creatures that wander about from the null dimension. They have a tendency of wandering into places they're not supposed to, and the higher concentration of magic, the higher chances there are that they could wander here. There are also magical leaks that appear from time to time, and they have to be closed in as well, among other responsibilities. That's why your team was being formed, Boruto, and why I've had you go through the training that you have. Each one of you possess special skills and abilities that can be useful for our world going forward. As more and more of the mystic arts are being brought in, more and more trouble could potentially follow it. And well, while I hate to be morbid, there's a chance that the adults might not always be here forever. That's why I want to ensure that even in the worst case scenario, we'll have capable fighters who can watch and defend over this world. I won't force any of you to take the position if you don't want it, but I would like to hope that maybe in the future, one of you three could be capable of being the next Sorcerer Supreme. One of us? Boruto said seriously. You gotta be joking. One of us would be the next Sorcerer Supreme of the world. That would be the gist of it, Boruto. But of course, we're not looking for a new candidate for quite a while, so you have nothing to worry about in that regard. It's just that you three would be the most likely of candidates. But what if none of us take the position though? Lee would say. Of course, if it were asked upon me to take it, I would, but I'm just being realistic. What if none of us are qualified? What if none of us take the role of Sorcerer Supreme? What will you do then? Well, you three wouldn't be the only candidates. There are others. What, like Himawari? Boruto would ask. Or my younger brother? Sarada would say. Now, there's no need to worry. I'm not looking for either of them to become the next Sorcerer Supreme anytime soon. Nor am I looking for you all to try to take on any unnecessary responsibility. In fact, if no one wants to take the position, I'm perfectly content with just letting it be retired. All we're looking for is to make sure that we have trained sorcerers who are qualified to look after this world. And I believe you three have what it takes. That's why Ava is being put in charge to oversee your training and development. The three of them were able to understand where he was coming from, and after being given their headbands respectively, they were now officially the new Team 7. From there, they would go on any regular mission that you would expect a ninja team to go on. From doing escorts, picking up trash, finding lost dogs and kittens, as well as doing some things that were more on the mystic side. For example, there was a certain area within the Land of Fire that was starting to create a small ripple effect, if you will. A small portal that was leaking out magic that needed to be closed. They were known as magic spots or blotches. Little parts in reality that were starting to leak out with magic. Of course, Naruto would normally close them all up himself and could usually have it done in just a few hours' time. But because he was the Hokage, he couldn't just leave the office as much as he wanted to. This is pretty much where Team 7 came in, taking care of the more mystic side of things, working almost as unofficial Sorcerer Supremes in a way, although not on the grand scale. Eventually, a new mission would occur for them. Naruto would give them the full details. Off in the mountainous regions towards the northern side of the border, there's been a little bit of a discrepancy. Discrepancy? Sarada would ask. Yes. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It could just be another blotch spot that needs to be closed, or it could be something entirely different. I would go myself, or I would send Sasuke, but he's currently not here at the moment. And I believe that this might be a good chance, a learning opportunity for you all. This is just a recon mission. I want you guys to investigate what's going on in the area and then report back to me. If it's anything that's overly serious, then I'll just make the exception and head there myself. With their mission given to them, they would head off to the mountainous region. This was an area that hadn't been much visited since the time of the Fourth Great Ninja War, of course. It was said that there were a few skirmishes and battles fought along this line, although the forested area for the most part had recovered since then, so the scars of war had long since healed. Eventually, though, Chavez would lead Team 7 to the opening of a massive cave that seemed to lead in the catacombs far underneath. You three can sense it, right? Chavez would ask them. Yeah. I feel a strong concentration of magic coming from down there. I have no idea what it could be, though. Do you think that it's a combatant? Lee would say. I highly doubt it, Sarada would say to them. Perhaps it's just a giant blotch. Just a place that's leaking out a bit more magic than normal. If so, if we all work together, we can have it closed up in a jiff. Hold it, Sarada, Chavez would say. Remember what Naruto said to us. We're just doing reconnaissance. I mean, if it's only just a giant blotch, then maybe I can go over perimeters, and maybe we can all close it together. But we'll have to stay on guard. Be careful. With that, the group would descend further into the caves. It, for the most part, just seemed like any other abandoned cave in a mountainous region. Nothing to be taken overly serious. There were rotten tree roots, and it got a lot darker the further they went inside. Chavez would create a light and would illuminate the area until eventually they found a cave with stalactites illuminating the ceiling above. It was an ominous hue, to say the least, a darker shade of violet that illuminated the top of the caves. As they continued to walk, they got closer and closer to where they could feel the aura was coming from. Chavez would stay on guard, with Boruto and with Sarada standing to the left and to the right respectively, with Lee standing in the back, bringing up the rear. They kept this formation until they came to another opening deeper within the cave itself. They were horrified at what they saw. It looked like a man and a dragon merged into one. A being that had been petrified turned to stone. But the stone part of its belly had looked to have burst. I'm going to check it out. You three stay in that formation and don't move. Chavez would take the time to investigate the dragon hybrid man statue. It looked like the guy was wearing glasses. Half man, half dragon-like snake, where it looked like a snake were protruding from out of its stomach that had broken up. It was like a husk of something, like it had shed its skin or changed. I don't know about you all, but this is really freaking me the hell out, Boruto would say. Yeah, I get what you mean, Sorcerer would add in. Lee? Lee, are you... Shh. What's going on? Sorcerer would ask Lee. I feel something. What? Get down! Lee would immediately push them both down and out of the way, as a swiping wave of energy would shoot overhead. Chavez would immediately stand on guard, looking for who had fired the shot. Within the cave walls, it seemed like there was something scurrying about, moving quickly and observing them for just a moment. All four of them would stand back to back with each other all at once, looking around, waiting to see who or what it was, until finally Boruto pointed to the cave wall, pointing high to the ceiling as there was something crawling about on top of it. It looked like a boy with pale skin and light blue hair, and eyes like that of gold. He jumped from the ceiling and landed on the floor in front of them, on all hands and feet, before slowly raising himself. There was no mistaking where the aura was coming from. There was residual aura coming from whatever that husk was, but the embodiment was this boy. His power was fluctuating, unlike anything Chavez had ever sensed. Whatever power this boy had was off the charts. But where the hell could it have come from? Whose child was he? And what was he doing here? Who are you? Boruto would ask. The pale-skinned boy cocked his head to the side, puzzling. Who am I? Who am I? Do you have a name? Sorcerer would ask. Name. Do I have a name? Immediately, multiple chains would appear from underground, glowing a crimson red as they wrapped around the boy. The crimson chains. America Chavez had summoned them to keep the boy in place and to stop him from moving. Before we go any further, you need to start giving us some answers, kid. She knew that the best course of action would be to summon in Naruto. But before she could even have a chance to, the chains would all be snapped away. The boy's eyes would glow, as a smile came across his face. You're pretty strong. Tell me, which one of you is the strongest? As everyone stood ready for the boy's attacks, he would disappear and reappear behind all of them, spooking them tremendously. Chavez would attempt to throw another strike towards him, only for him to disappear once again, before reappearing in a different area. I feel connected. I feel connected to all of you, especially you three. The mysterious boy pointed to Boruto, Sorcerer, and Lee. I can feel them. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, all powerful sorcerers. I feel them, but you are not them. My father thinks highly of them. But who are you? We're trying to figure out who you are, Boruto said. How do you know who our parents are? Who's your father? Lee would say. My father. I am the product of many things. The product of Orochimaru. The product of Kabuto. Orochimaru? Kabuto? What? Are you connected to Orochimaru? No. I am merely the product of Orochimaru, the boy said. But I have no connection to Orochimaru. He did not give me life. Then who did? Chavez said. My father, Dormammu. This concludes Boruto, the Sorcerer's Son. What if Boruto was a sorcerer? Season 1, Part 1. Thank you all for the debut of this brand new series. I hope you'll enjoy it the same way that you've enjoyed the original with What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange. For the first part, I wanted to try to stay as true to the original story of Boruto as much as I could, while continuing my own original story and interpretation in my own way. I do want to apologize ahead of time. I'm not going to be doing a one-for-one retelling of the Boruto story, simply because this world has diverged to so many points that telling that original story really won't make a lot of sense. But I do hope to keep to the original spirit of what Boruto and Naruto was, as well as to what Mystic Adventures were, as we now continue into the story of Boruto, the Sorcerer's Son. But anyway, stay tuned tomorrow morning as we'll continue with What If Boruto Was a Sorcerer, Season 1, Part 2. Anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington, signing off, and I'll see you next time.